Hi, welcome to Instant Impact Events. I'm CJ.
And I'm Cheryl. Welcome, guys.
How you doing today?
We're happy to have you here. We've got a lot going on. We've been out of town,
busy,
doing events.
doing
We've
our
been
thing.
and doing these recordings for you guys. And
Yes,
we've been getting
on time.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of feedback and questions, and so we love the interaction, the engagement.
Yes.
And that's what we said, like from the beginning, why we started this is because we want to engage more with the event community, with this industry. There's
makes it fun.
and there's a need.
Yeah.
It kind of sometimes feels like we're always an island unto ourselves, like, oh, we're doing this or we're doing that. But really being able to find like-minded people and other people that are kind of
doing the same thing.
Yeah, in the same direction, moving the same way, having the same
no matter
questions,
what kind of event, a small one or a big one,
or
doesn't
any
matter.
type. We always talk about an event is an event is an event, and it's an experience. So what experience are you creating while you're putting on? Yeah, from your kid's birthday party all the way to a 10,000 person conference or event or expo or concert or whatever you're putting on. And of course, each area and aspect has its own little niche and its own, set of things that are going to apply more towards that. And yet, as an overall, it's a lot of the same concepts and a lot of the same things.
Create that wonderful experience.
Yep. And so because we've been getting, a lot of questions, a lot of people are like, oh, well, do you have more that you can give us or more, available? And so we are working on a few things behind the scenes right now. We don't want to say too much about it yet because it's still a work in progress. But we are working on putting together some things that will be able to help expand upon what we're talking about and more detail, drill down more, and also working on how we can all work together more on a weekly basis. We're sitting here, we have normally a topic that we're discussing, and we kind of just talk to you, right? And then it's like, okay, if you have questions, let us know. So we're working on a way that we can make it even more interactive, while we keep the show and things like that as a component, but also working on some things that we can do where we can on a smaller group types of settings, have communication on a weekly basis, but also have a way of being able to address questions right away and kind of flow through that as well. So those are some things that we have in the works that should be coming. We should have more information available in the next few weeks on that. And we've got some major transitions and things that we're going through and working on. So pretty soon we'll be able to talk more about that, and things might look a little different behind us here shortly as well. And in the meantime, we're happy that we're sitting here and we're able to be with you guys and bring this message that we have that we're not only passionate about, that we have so much experience in, right? And everyone has their own area of expertise and their own experience and their own way of doing things. And so we just want to offer, insight on a weekly basis into the way that we see things being done and what we can do to improve. Some
guidance and little tricks.
And, things that maybe you haven't even thought of before. It's like, oh, well.
Aha moment.
Okay, that's great. That's something I need to add. Or I've thought about that, but I wasn't really sure how I could work that.
Go about it.
So, that's what this is all about. It's about growing and evolving and changing and taking yourself and your business, whatever aspect of the business that you're, to the next level. It really is. And we always say it only takes an instant to make an impact. And so we hope that these small little instances that you're with us, that we're able to come and talk to you and teach you a specific lesson or topic or idea really makes an impact in your business. And again, what we always say is the only way this is going to change anything or improve your business or another tool that you can add to your tool belt is by utilizing, by putting it into action and actually
action steps,
taking it and putting it to use, right? And so if you've got some events that you're working on, or maybe you don't have any right now and you're just like, I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing, then you can start with a good solid foundation, right? And go from there and start putting in. If you haven't listened to all the previous episodes that we have,
go back there.
There's always great information. So whether you're watching this, in video form or in podcast form, we have both available. to you, go back and utilize the resources. And sometimes, listening to things more than once is helpful too, because we talk and
because you could be busy the first time while you're watching it or listening to it, and you can go right back to it.
and sometimes, we know the lingo, we know the information, so we're here talking. But if it's new to you, don't feel bad going back and listening to it again, taking notes, asking us questions. If you have questions, we do our best to get back to everybody
You'll learn more
that we
way.
can. But also, the main thing is don't become overwhelmed. Take a deep breath and say, okay, this is what I'm going to implement today. This is what I'm going to implement this week going
Yes.
forward. These are some of the things, my
Yep.
takeaways, right, that I'm going to start putting into use. And that's
Yes.
the major distinction between, just listening or actually applying.
Correct.
And so we always want to stress the importance of taking the time, while you're taking the time out of your day to listen, to these episodes, listen to these topics. Then you need to go a step further from that and go from
Just
listening
implement step by step.
to action, right? Putting it into place. And so if you are driving, listen, but then take some notes or listen back to it when you have a chance that you can sit down and really focus and glean what are some of the things that I'm going to utilize, or some of the questions now that I have, or some things that I need to look further into to figure out how I can utilize this in my business even better, even more, to keep it going. So today's topic is all on F&B, right?
Food and beverage.
Food and beverage is big, and then it's also not. It depends on the types of events that you're doing as to how food and beverage is going to play a role in the overall event experience that you have. The main thing that I always like to talk about is when you're looking for venue space, I'd rather pay for food and beverage than paying for the space. And what I mean by that is everything is a negotiation, right? So if you're coming in and you're looking for event space for 2 or 3 days or for an evening or whatever you're looking for, and they're like, okay, well, it's X amount of dollars to rent this space out, right? The next question is, okay.
It's going to be a big number sometimes.
Right. I mean, it depends on how much space you need, right? Could I, instead of just paying for the space, could I pay for food and beverage, right? And get the space comped?
They'll offset.
So instead of me just paying for a space like a box or whatever it is your space is, and then if I want anything else, I had to pay for that separate. You can negotiate where, hey, instead of paying and having the money go towards the room or the meeting space or the space that I need,
It's really not being used anyway.
right? It's just for the space. Could I pay for food and beverage and get the space comped? Because the main thing with most venues is they want to fill their space, but they want more
They want the
revenue.
other-
They want the food and beverage revenue
Yes.
coming in. And it's just however it looks on their books, that's the way they prefer it.
Seems like it's more money coming in.
Right. And sometimes it is, because with food and beverage, then you have service fees and you have
Food
other
costs.
things that go along with that they're not usually charging for just the meeting space. And yet I would rather get something more tangible for my dollars, right? For the money that I'm investing into this, where I can get the space and then I can also get some food and beverage. Maybe I want a tea or a coffee break, or maybe you want an afternoon, snack, or maybe that you're doing a cocktail hour, and so you need, you want a bar, but then you also want hors d'oeuvres. Maybe you're doing a sit-down dinner. Maybe you're doing a buffet. All these different things all fall into the category of food and beverage. And if you can get your dollars or your money
Right.
that you're investing into this event going
help so
towards
much.
food, right, or your beverage component, and getting your meeting space comped or very discounted, right? Maybe something is $5,000 a day to rent, and they're like, you know what? We can offset and we can pay $1,000 for the room if you pay $4,000 for food and beverage. Okay, well, I would rather pay $1,000 and have
Than
$4,000 over here for food than just $5,000 for the space alone, right?
Correct.
And this is it's never set in stone. If you don't ask, you don't get. So if you're not talking to the person at the venue and saying, hey, I would really like the meeting space comped, and the money is to go towards food and beverage. If you don't mention that, they probably won't mention it to you,
They
right?
won't.
They would rather you pay for the meeting space and the food and beverage,
yes.
and the audiovisual, and the,
To them,
right?
it's just a corporate event. It's something corporate where you're just going to pay this high price.
Well, not even. It's even more than that. They want whatever revenue they can get. And so if you're willing to pay for your meeting space and pay for your food and beverage,
got a budget like that,
and pay, but again, if you just ask a simple question of, hey, what do I need to do, or what needs to happen for me to be able to get that meeting space comped and have those monies go towards
food and beverage.
Food and beverage. You can also, another caveat, it's not on food and beverage, but you could also get, sleeping rooms comped and other things too. That all comes down to negotiating your venue space correctly on the front end, right? And like I said, nothing is set in stone. Everything is a negotiation. You can get comps. You can get discounts. You can get your food and beverage in there. You can get all kinds of stuff. You can get your whole meeting space comp where you're not paying a dime for your meeting space. You're getting all the meeting space you need, and everything's going towards food and beverage.
Yes.
And then that's a great win-win, because now you're getting the space and you're getting something else on top of that instead of just the space.
That your attendees are going to love.
Right.
That you have that available.
Attendees love little things like, and
even a cookie.
If you haven't had an event before, you might not understand how expensive things are. Like a pot, of like a carafe, they call it.
1 gallon.
1 gallon of coffee can be
hundreds of dollars.
Anywhere between $300 and $500 for the gallon, right?
One.
This is not Starbucks.
And even water cost.
Well, it depends. Normally, water is thrown in.
Well, for the tea.
To the thing, but tea is different. Tea is not water. Right. So the same thing for tea. So all these different, because hot water for tea, but for them to supply the tea bags, right? And most venues do not allow you to bring in your own food and beverage. So yes, you could go to Starbucks and get their gallons of coffee.
Yes, you could be thinking that first.
That ain't gonna happen, right?
Hotels don't like
because they want, we even have challenges sometimes bringing in cases of water just to have for the speaker to be able to drink, or the staff to be able to have just a quick
we have to hide it under the
water,
table.
Right? And so bringing in your own food most of the time. Now there are a few venues who are like, hey, we're just the venue, you need to bring in your own food. If that's what you're dealing with, then that's totally different. But most venues are not that way, because they know they can make their money on food and beverage.
Even water. Right. Even the speaker wants water on the stage, he wants ice and stuff, that costs. That costs just to fill up his ice.
We had a speaker who wanted, a certain type of mixed drink, right? And it's not something that they could,
Palmer's.
that the hotel could supply, right? It wasn't, so we had to bring that in, and we had to make sure on the front end and the contract, they knew that we were bringing that in. Like, hey, we're bringing in this tea and this lemonade.
They're not going to come at us being pissed at us.
No, we're bringing this tea and this lemonade because you don't have tea and lemonade to supply that we need at all these different times. Right. So sometimes you can negotiate and work those things in. If you know ahead of time, you can get those details in there. But most of the time, everything is a negotiation. Nothing is set in stone. So when you don't ask, you don't get. So you just start asking these things. What needs to happen for me to really get this room comped? And then be like, or hey, how much food and beverage do I need to do to get my meeting space comp for the days that I need it?
And that's a tier. It's a tier. It's going to be with your tea, your coffee, your
And it's very easy you think, well, I'm not having that big of an event, 50 people. It's very easy for 50 people to be thousands of dollars for food and beverage, right? Because tea and coffee alone is thousands of dollars, right? And you've got to make sure.
Right, because that's every day. It's not going to be that 1 gallon per day. It's going to be a couple gallons.
And 1 gallon does not feed that many people's, coffee cups. So when it's not much. So you're gonna need multiple gallons depending. And the venue will tell you, well, most people, if you have X amount, you're gonna need about this amount. That's they'll tell you how much on average you need on that. And it also depends if your group is, we had some events that we were doing in like Miami, and they had cafecito. So they had a certain time, it was like 3 something in the afternoon, where it was coffee time, and everyone drank coffee. Now you have other events like, I don't want coffee, I don't drink coffee, but every single day at this particular time, it was coffee with cream in it at this particular time, and everybody drank it, right? That was that time. So then you needed to make sure that you had enough coffee for that.
That's right.
It wasn't tea that they were drinking, it wasn't sodas, it wasn't any of that other thing. It was coffee, right? So you've got to know what your group or what your attendees are going to expect and what they're going to want. And drinks are just one thing, right? Then maybe they're like, oh, an afternoon pick-me-up snack. So then you're gonna, are you
Right, so
going
right
more
after
healthy? Are you doing like, you know, granola bars and protein bars and fruit?
Yes, and that would be after lunch.
Yogurt and that kind of stuff? Or are you doing more, you know, chips and that kind of thing?
Yes.
Again, knowing your audience and what they want and what they
Yes.
expect adds to the overall experience. But anytime that you can negotiate these things in, that your money is going further because now you're getting space and you're getting food and
Yes.
beverage for the same amount that you'd be getting to space
Yes.
because you asked and you negotiated that in. You could have drink breaks, right? Where it's coffee or tea or soda or juice or whatever. You could have breakfast. You could have
lot of different
more of like
types.
a grab and go type of breakfast. Maybe it's some granola or maybe it's
Or
yogurt.
one of those sandwiches.
Or like a
breakfast
sandwich that's sitting there ready to go. You could have ones that are more, and those are normally a little grab and go, a little cheaper, depends how much time you have. Then you could do like a whole buffet where they've got eggs and bacon and sausage and French
Yeah,
toast and
you want
pancakes.
that, you don't want that during the event.
No,
You
that's
want
gotta
it
be before.
Way in the morning.
And then there has to be ample enough space for seating too, because you don't want them eating that in your main
Inside.
space. So if it's a grab and go, it's like, hey, come in the morning, you can grab your coffee and your granola and your this or that,
Right.
and you kind of stand and eat it while you're meeting and mingling, versus like a buffet breakfast where you need a whole nother room with a whole nother sit down space because people are gonna need a plate and they're gonna need to sit.
And that's in negotiations also by having that extra room, because you don't want them in the room with the food.
No.
You want them right next door to be able to have tables taken away.
You have to know when you're talking to your venue what type of food and beverage you're wanting, because that's a whole other room, right? Like if you're doing a cocktail hour, where are you doing that? Are you doing that in your meeting space? Are you doing that outside of the patio?
Yeah.
Are you doing that in another room? That all
you
has
want a
to
ballroom close by
be right.
that you can have set up already. The foods or snacks set up already. Everything done.
Unless it's a beautiful like summer fall evening and they have a patio or a balcony,
Yes.
and you can have it set up outside with like lights and the whole ambiance, then you can do it outside. So
There's the event site coming out.
it all depends.
There's that-
It all depends on the time of year and the space that you're at. Some places
Correct.
don't have an outside option. Some
No.
do, right? Some will be like, hey, we know that you're gonna have this, you know, cocktail hour, so you can have it over here. And because you're having a cocktail, you're not paying for the space because you already have your meeting space. This is like
Yes.
additional and two,
Yes.
because you're gonna pay for the food and beverage. We'll give you that space for those few hours that you need.
Yes.
So it all is a negotiation, but you have to know from the beginning, what are you wanting to negotiate? Are you wanting a cocktail hour? Are you wanting a sit-down dinner? Are you
Right.
wanting a lunch?
And if-
Are you wanting a pack and grab and go? So it's a working lunch. They go out and,
And if
grab
not,
a box.
you don't have to worry about all that.
Right. Are you wanting just something small and little? Are you not wanting anything at all? Like that's all up to you. And
Yes.
if you're going to already pay for the meeting space, get something for it. Whether it's tea one day,
Rooms.
or whether it's rooms,
A
or
suite.
whether it's you know, maybe you're just doing one afternoon, it's like the final day, you want to send them off with a snack so they have an afternoon snack. Maybe you want one meal that you have on one particular day, but you're not doing all meals. Maybe you're doing like VIP meals. Maybe you have a smaller group of people who are VIP, they paid a little extra,
And then
they
they
get
have
a
a private
special
room, they have a little ticket.
Yep. So those are all things to think about when you're thinking about your food and beverage. And there's no right or wrong. There's no,
It's just different.
it's just, you've got to know the experience that you're wanting to create
ahead of time.
what you're wanting to do, because then you can negotiate all that on the
Right.
front end and be paying for the food and beverage instead of
Right.
paying for just the
How
space,
about
right?
lunchtime?
Lunch is a great opportunity because people normally, if you're going to have a full day event, everyone needs lunch. So they're either going to have to go off site and find it somewhere. They're going to have to find a restaurant there, or
Take a walk.
you can have a lunch grab and go options. Another thing you can do is, if you're not wanting to provide a meal that you're paying for, right?
Right.
But the venue knows that they don't have a lot of options around for food, they can say, hey, we'll go ahead and put together something,
A short menu
a
from
small
restaurant.
or something very small over here, or a grab and go, and because
Yes.
they know you're going to have 500 people there, so
Right, that's money for them.
a lot of people, so you're not paying for that, but that's something they're going to offer because
Right.
they know they don't have a lot of restaurants in the area
They
on
can have
site,
that upstairs.
and so on
they
and so
have a
forth.
cash register.
Yeah.
And grab and go.
So it'd be like a cash lunch.
Grab
people
and
paying.
go.
cash. They can still slide their card and stuff
Yeah.
too, but
Grab and go.
but you wouldn't be footing the bill for that, right?
No.
That's more the venue saying, hey, we know we're in an area right now where there's not a lot of lunch options to be able to come and go. We still want you guys to
Yeah,
come
that's
here.
very good for
so
the
we'll
hotel
provide
or
this
venue.
because they know they're going to make extra revenue there. And then you
Yes.
can just announce that, hey, upstairs or out down the hall to the right, they're doing, you know, lunches they already have put together.
Or in the restaurant.
That too.
Yes.
So, and if you are using the restaurant, because we used to sometimes have, we would have specific food and beverage, you know, needs that we would have, but then we would still take a smaller group of people to the restaurant to just sit around and eat too. And if that's
Yes.
a plan that you're going to do, then you need to let the restaurants know.
And how
Maybe
much
you're going to
time.
have 10 or 15 people per table going to be sitting there, and there's a
Yes.
few different, you know, breakout sessions that you're doing or different things there.
It's something you'll work out with the venue
Right.
as soon as possible.
So then you just go to them as soon as you're like on setup day and say, hey, tomorrow on the next day we're going to be here. We'd
Yes,
like to
what can you
have
do
this
for
table
us?
and this table.
Well, yes. Do you
Yeah.
have a private room?
Yep, that too. So those are all things to talk about, and yet it comes from you knowing what you're wanting to have at your event, what experience you're wanting to
Right.
create, what your attendees expect. What have they been told? What do they want? So that way you can make sure you deliver that, but you're also in a way delivering it that you're not just paying for space. You're incorporating your food and beverage into that.
Yes.
Another thing is, you know, cocktail hours. A lot of times you're paying per bartender for that as well. And so, you know, cocktail hours, you could be providing hors d'oeuvres, and maybe it's a cash bar. Maybe you're not supplying, you know, the liquor, but it's still there.
Right.
They will bring in someone
To do that for you.
because they know they're going to make the revenue back from that. So
And you can also have tickets.
Yep.
So the first,
Drink tickets.
the first and second drink are for free, and then you pay after.
right. So you could say, hey, everyone, you get 2 drink tickets, and so then you've already paid for two drinks, right?
Yep.
For everyone
and
who's
there'll be a
there.
little more discounted for you probably.
Yeah, because they already know, regardless of someone drinks it or not, they've already been paying, right?
Yes.
Because you're already buying the drink tickets. So
Yes.
they know X amount of, but anything over that, like, hey, if you wanted a third drink, you would need to go and it would be a cash
Yeah,
bar for you
cash
at that
bar,
point.
right.
Or what some people do is they go around and be like, hey, are you not using your drink tickets? And then they get the other person's drink tickets so they can have drink tickets. So,
Yes.
you
'Cause
know,
they know that person doesn't drink.
and it's already been paid for. So the drink ticket is already paid.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of different ways, right? And so the main thing when you're putting together your event is you need to say, what are the opportunities? Where are the places that we're wanting to have meals
Yes.
or drinks
And make a better
or
experience.
and have that laid out. Then when you go and look for your venues, when you're negotiating, hey, we're gonna have a VIP lunch, we're gonna have a cocktail hour for all
They're gonna
attendees,
wanna hear that.
we're gonna
They're
have
gonna
this
love
and
it.
that. So they're like, okay, so then what can you do to work on the room for me? How can we comp the room? What do we need?
It'll be so much easier because they already know that you're willing to
And
take care
another
of
thing
food.
you can do is you can first just say, hey, this is the space that we need, and see what they come back with. And then the ones who are willing to work with you, you already know what the price of the room is going to be. So then you can say, hey, we're needing this, this, and this for our food and beverage.
Right.
How can we get the room comped and put those dollars towards your
And
food
then
and
you know
beverage?
the real price of the
Yeah.
room instead of attempting
Well, the
to
room is
incorporate
actually
the room
X.
plus this plus
Yeah.
that.
So see what their price is that they give you on the front end for the room. And because they'll ask you need food and beverage, say, well, I'm not sure yet. Can you just quote me on the room, right? And
Right.
then when they quote you on the room, say, awesome, okay, great. So it's X amount of dollars for the room per day for this.
Yes.
What needs to happen for us to be able to get the room comped and the money is to go towards F&B?
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
And again, the lingo, F&B, if you're in events, it's food and beverage. It's just how it's talked about. No one says food and beverage. It's all F&B. You have your BEOs. You have like all these different terms, BEOs, banquet event order. These are all things that people aren't saying the real word, right? We're not saying food and beverage. We're saying it for you today, but never do I go around. It's F&B, F&B,
Yes.
F&B. And then you're going to get your BEO, and your BEO is your banquet event order. And that's what everything's going to be laid out. What time, what setup, what all that is going to be on there.
It's the same information for the room daily.
Yeah.
To
So-
make sure you had everything you needed just
Hey,
for the room.
if you want a bucket of ice, it needs to say it on there. If you wanted, drinks,
More.
if you wanted water, if you want a room refresh, right? That's all going to be
Yes.
on the BEO. Like, hey, we're
How many
breaking.
breaks are you
we're
gonna
breaking
have?
at 9:45. I need a room refresh. Means they're going to
Yes.
come in. They're going to kind of straighten up
And be
and they're gonna put more
available to
water
refresh.
because you don't want them coming in when you're in the middle of your event. coming in and changing out the water, or changing
taking
the
all
trash,
the trash
or
out. No.
taking. Sometimes they have to, like the what are those called? The stands that you can put your cups and things like that on. They're clingy, clang, clang. No, you want to have times.
Yep.
That's why sticking to your timeline is important too, because you tell the
schedule.
venue these things, right? So then they have people waiting outside because you tell them, don't come in until these doors open. So then they're waiting to come in to refresh the room. You should have a room refresh for your morning break, after lunch, afternoon break as well. So there should be at least 3 times a day that they're coming in to refresh the room. Now, if you need anything between then and then, you can always, request that.
Yes.
And yet they have on their schedule then this time, they're going to have their people ready to come in
And that's
refresh.
the time that they'll bring in more coffee or bring in the snacks
At those breaks,
breaks.
if that's something you have. So if you're
Yeah.
now, if you say, hey, we're going to break at 9:45, and out in the hall, right in the corridor, we want to have our snacks out there, or we want to have our morning coffee out there.
Yes.
They'll have all that set up out there, all ready to go. So when
And
you break,
sometimes they'll sneak in if you want the coffee is going to be inside.
yeah,
They'll just wheel it in.
you just got to remind them,
Sometimes,
please
if
be
it's going to be
quiet.
on break or not.
Yeah.
But if you want it ready already, they'll just wheel it in. It doesn't take a lot of noise.
And then there are some COVID policies in certain places. So it used to be, you could go and pour your own water and pour your own coffee. And so some places now are like, hey, we have to serve it to you.
Yeah.
So just know
That happened
those
in
things.
Vegas.
You should not be charged extra because they need to serve it to you. Okay.
Right. Yes.
Now, bartender, that's different. Like your bartender.
Yeah, you're not just gonna grab a
it's-
beer
No, you're
and
not going to
walk
just
off.
grab your drink and start mixing and pouring. But things that were pre-COVID that you weren't paying for, like, hey, I can walk up and I can go to the thing and I can press the thing
Yes.
down and have coffee or hot water or whatever pour out. I wasn't paying an attendant at that time to do that for me.
That's happened to me.
You should not be paying for that now. That should just be part of the service they're now offering because they want to have you at their venue.
Yeah, it's
That's part
their
of
cost.
it. That's their cost to have someone, because their state or their county ordinance is saying you can't handle drinks, or they have to do that for you. That's on them then. So
Yep.
you got to be cognizant of these things of what was pre-COVID that was you were responsible and what wasn't, and you should not be footing any extra bills.
No
Just
extra
like,
room for a breakout room.
Right.
Just like happened to me.
Yeah.
We're about to go to an event, and then we found out we needed 3 breakout rooms.
you needed 3 more rooms because you couldn't all be in one room.
Right. So
Yeah.
side by side, they had to provide
Yep.
a screen, a projector,
Well, and they needed
audio.
to comp the space too,
Yes.
because they still wanted the event, right? They were just
Yep.
saying X amount of people couldn't all be in one room, and they had to be split up between 3 rooms, and then
4.
right, it was the main room and 3 other ones, so 4 rooms now for the same amount of people that used to be in one. You shouldn't be paying for those extra rooms, right? You shouldn't be paying for. They still want to have the event, and things change all the time. And things are hopefully things are settling down a little bit, and not
Should be.
so ever evolving. And these are things though to be on the lookout for,
Make sure.
because
Yes.
that should be part of what's being
Should they
provided.
ask about it?
You could always ask, like, hey, are there any type of COVID restrictions, policies, things I need
They
to know?
need to know now.
Before
Yes.
we know, and then they'll tell you what those are. But again, they should be welcoming you to come to their venue and want to do
Because
everything
things
they
slowed down so
can
much.
to have you be there so they can,
Take care
have
of
that
you.
revenue and take care of you. So a lot of times they're not looking for all the little things, but sometimes they are. So you have to be looking out for that.
Yes.
You shouldn't be paying these extra things.
No.
How can you get more? And now more than ever, you should be able to negotiate more things into your contract because they want your business, right? We're still not at full capacity of events happening in person, things going on. They're hurting for business. So they should be bending over backwards saying, hey, we'll offer you the penthouse. We'll offer you 4 more rooms for your staff. We'll offer you some thrown in coffee and tea, because
Yeah,
coffee and
'cause
tea
people
cost
aren't
them
traveling as much.
it costs them nothing for
Yes.
coffee and tea, right? We'll
Nothing.
throw in some of those things for you. You
Yeah,
pay. We'll
just
comp
ask.
the space. The
Just
more you
ask.
ask, the better. And it's you want to make it a win-win. You want them to have the business because they're gonna have more people coming, staying in their hotel, their venue, all that kind of stuff. But you also want to make sure that you're getting the most that you can get out of it as well. And it all comes from negotiating and knowing what you want ahead of time, so that
Right.
you can work out those details.
That's right.
Anything else?
That's it. Babe.
All right, well, I'm hungry now. All this food and beverage I've been talking. I'm gonna have to get a snack. All right, guys, thank you so much
Thanks
for
for
tuning
being
in
here.
to another episode, and we will bring you another
See you
one
soon.
next week. And in the meantime, remember, it only takes an instant to make an impact. Make sure you gather some information for what we talked about today and start implementing it and putting it into use and go out there and create some kick-ass events. We'll talk to you soon, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.